Happy Monday, everybody. It is hard to believe that we are already in week 6 and we're really moving along in the semester. So before we get into some discussion about Chapter 5, I just want to give you a couple reminders. The first reminder is that your argument diagram assignment is due in just under 2 weeks. Remember that listed on the front page of Canvas, as well as the assignment description on Canvas, is the op-ed that you should be analyzing for this assignment. So rather than choosing any old article, make sure that you're choosing that particular article to analyze using the Tolman model. You should also make sure that you're checking out the assignment guidelines that contains the rubric that I'll be using to grade this assignment. So please keep working and make sure that you're ready to go on that assignment. Let me know if you have any questions on that assignment. If you want to send me a draft or you're just wondering if you're on the right track, I'm happy to take a look at it and give you some feedback there. So just know that that assignment is coming up, and the best way that you can prepare for that assignment is to look through Chapter 4 on the Tolman model, since that lays out the parts of an argument that you'll need to put together for that diagram. The other assignment that you have coming up soon is your argumentative topic paper. So the topic paper is designed to help you think about a particular topic that you might want to debate and engage in that relates to the course concepts. So you might want to pick a contemporary issue or topic, and you'll talk about in that topic paper the significance and importance of that particular issue. And to do so, you'll bring in some relevant sources to show why that particular issue is important. After you do that, you'll put together the argumentative essay, a later assignment, where you argue a particular point of view on that topic, and then your refutation block, where you refute and disprove the original arguments that you made. Just as a reminder, as you're thinking through the topic paper, this Chapter 5 is probably the best resource for you in terms of figuring out what topic you might want to use. In fact, I encourage you to use this chapter, Chapter 5, in order to think through what you want to work on for your topic paper. Also, a reminder, you should try to avoid topics that are a little bit overdone. So the big 3 that tend to be talked about a lot are abortion, gun control, and marijuana. It's not that you can't talk about those topics, but if you do, try to make them a little bit more specific, since a lot of times these topics tend to be over-discussed and become kind of stuck in a rut in terms of the arguments that get used. So just know that that's some things to think about for that assignment. So Chapter 5 is a little bit of a reprieve. I think that the Tolman model in Chapter 4 lays out a lot of different concepts, but this chapter is definitely a lot shorter, and as mentioned, is designed to help you think about what topics you want to explore for your papers. So when we have a proposition, right, we're trying to think about what is the central issue at play related to this topic. So for instance, if you're wanting to debate something about, for instance, reform to the educational system, so providing, for instance, free access to lunch for students in K through 12 schools, you might have a proposition such as, should we provide free lunch to students in K through 12 schools? So presenting the proposition as a question is a way that you can think about, what is the side that you might have people agreeing or disagreeing with. So when you've identified that question from that proposition, I think that's a really good way to start thinking through what arguments you're ultimately going to be building. As you're thinking about what topic to choose, you want to think about, is it significant? So a significant topic is probably one that affects a lot of people, or maybe it has a lot of historical significance, or maybe it just is in the news and has a lot of importance. So if you're talking, for instance, about an endangered species that's like some sort of kind of mosquito that doesn't really do much for the environment, right? That might be a little bit harder to determine the significance of. So one thing you'll want to do in your topic paper is think about, to what degree has this topic been talked about, and why does this topic matter? For whom? Who is affected? What are the stakes of this topic? Additionally, is this topic relevant? So is this a topic that matters in the context of current discussion and issues? So for instance, if you were to debate about why women should have the right to vote in the US, right, that wouldn't necessarily be a relevant topic anymore, because women now have the right to vote. So you're going to want to think about a topic that's relevant and matters given current issues that are happening. You'll want to think about inherency. Inherency sounds a little bit tricky, but you should think about it as sort of what is the roadblock that is preventing the thing you'd like to see happen, or the position you want people to take, from happening. So a lot of times, right, we have various topics where Congress has just been dragging its feet and not actually getting a change that we want in place. So say, for example, you want to have a change to the Medicaid work requirements in the United States, and say you have a bill that's currently waiting in Congress on that. The inherency is, while this bill has happened, it hasn't passed yet. So inherency is the barrier that is preventing or blocking what you want to happen from happening. And ideally, when you're advocating for an argument, you're explaining why your advocacy will help to overcome and resolve that particular inherency. Additionally, consistency. So are the arguments that you're putting together consistent? They match up and make sense with one another. So for instance, if you were talking about K through 12 schools and you brought in an argument about music class and why we should have music class, right? That's off topic. That's not consistent with the arguments as you're trying to present them. So another set of things that you want to think about is the kind of costs and risks. So every time you're making a decision, there are trade-offs. There are costs that you make in doing something, and there are risks that you have to assess on whether or not doing something is a good idea. So if, for example, you were to go out to get pizza to eat, right? There's costs in terms of the literal financial cost of getting pizza, but there's also risks in terms of driving, in terms of the pizza potentially giving you food poisoning. So you have to assess those risks and determine, is the gain of getting pizza worth making that decision? So that's something that you have to kind of decide on as well. When you consider the issues, you're thinking about what are the areas of controversy, or what are the areas that are important related to this topic. So if we talked about K through 12 and providing free lunch for students, one of the major issues would be related to poverty. Another major issue would be related to cost. So those are some of the decisions that you can indicate are important. An uncontroversial matter doesn't necessarily mean that there's no debate, but that there is generally very little debate. There's largely a consensus that something is correct. So for example, gravity exists and the Earth is round is largely an uncontroversial matter. Not that there aren't flat earthers out there, but that is a generally agreed upon assumption that the Earth is round. Additionally, you'll want to provide really good clarity, right? So clarity is explaining, using claims, following the Tolman model with subsequent support, including grounds and warrants, your central arguments. So having really good claims that you're able to support well, cutting the fluff and making arguments really clear in your sentences is a way to boost clarity. Another thing you should think about are locating points of disagreement. So what this means is, when you're debating a topic like free lunch for students, you want to think about people who might oppose you and the angle that they would try to make in arguing against you. So people who make the argument against free lunch for students probably are going to make an argument about the cost of lunch, might make an argument about the cost of nutrition. So maybe free school lunch isn't very good, it's not very nutritious for students. So those could be some of the potential arguments. Ideally, when you're making strong arguments, you're preempting or you're thinking ahead to what somebody might say in response to you. That way you already kind of prepare what arguments you want to say against them. You also want to have criteria. So criteria is what the decision maker is using or thinking through in order to make their decision. So for example, if I was using the criteria of doing the greatest good for the greatest number, I might say that doing something like free school lunch is a good idea. It helps students that are in poverty and don't necessarily have the resources in order to get food. But if I were to use a criteria that was about the best, most cost-efficient policy for the school, I probably wouldn't be in favor of free school lunch. Additionally, you should think about support. And we've talked about support a fair bit already in terms of using things like grounds, warrants, backing, and so on. But as you start working on your topic paper, you're going to want to think about what sources you can bring in that provide support and help show why the topic that you're addressing is important. So ranking the issues and rank filing the issues is sort of the last thing that gets talked about in this chapter, and that's the idea of literally listing out the importance of particular issues on the topic. One of the best ways to do that is to really immerse yourself in the literature and research that's been happening. What are the people arguing about related to this topic? What are the most controversial facts surrounding this topic? So, this chapter is pretty straightforward. I think you should use it as you're thinking about the topic for your topic paper, but do make sure that you're starting to think about topics there, and more immediately that you're getting ready to complete your argument diagram assignment. That does it for us for this week. I'll have your latest activities graded by Wednesday, but let me know if you have any questions in the meantime.